The I Got You Organizer bag got you covered. You have plenty of zippers, plenty of space, lots of pockets, and you can organize all of your essential that you need during the day. So, if you like zippers, this is the bag for you. The top closes completely, so no gaps at the sides, and the interior can be sewn without a center divider. There's a choice. If you add an elastic band, you could also put a cup holder in there or anything else that you would like to attach to the bag so everything stays in place. But if you're more the type that likes a challenge, you could also add the center divider, which has another roomy zipper pocket, and I've attached 2 sleeves on there so you can have your bottles or your wallet or everything else that you like to divide staying in place. So this is the version without the center divider, and on the right you see the center divider and the 2 sleeves attached. Of course, you could also attach just 1 sleeve. It's totally up to you. On both versions, you'll find an interior zipper pocket and a slip pocket as well. But first, let's prepare our fabrics and our pattern. Please save the file to your computer and open it and print it with the Adobe Reader. When you get to your settings, you have to make sure that you've chosen the right format and downloaded the right format. It's either DIN A4 or US letter. And then you have to print this on 100% or actual size so the measurements are correct. If you have printed your pattern pieces, please check the box if your measurements are correct. Let's get to our materials. This is the Flieseline G700. I use this for all of my lining pieces. This is the Decofill Light for the exterior fabrics, and you could also use some volume. This is H730 or Thermalon, and this is the H250. I've used this for a few pieces, especially for the top closure, because you don't want to fuse the top closure with Decofill Light because it's way too bulky to top stitch later. I've also used the H250 for the slip pocket and the front pocket, the exterior pieces, and I fused them on there, including the seam allowance. You could also leave the seam allowance out of there because the top closure might be quite bulky in the end to top stitch. There's one piece for the Decofill Light. For the back piece, you need to cut off this rectangle out of the Decofill piece, and the gusset for the side pockets don't have any interfacing. See, this is the side pocket main fabric. I've used this with Decofill Light, and if you like to, you can add the Thermalon or H630, but I prefer not to on this version. I did not use any volume fleece at all. And if you're deciding to go for the center divider, including the sleeves, there are specialties about how to interface them too. Please check the pattern, the ebook, which pieces need what interfacing. So the handles, I made them from a webbing that's wider, but I didn't have enough, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna add the strap in a different size or not. I'll decide this later. And we do need a lot of zipper tape because we have lots of zippers. And of course, we need a lot of zipper pulls as well. I think there's seven pieces in total, but I suggest you to print out the whole material list and put it right where you store your pattern pieces. We also need some D-rings and some bias tape, but only for the side pockets. But before we get distracted by all the materials, let's just dive into it and start with the side pieces. So first, we will make the pockets, the side pockets. These are the pieces that we're gonna need. The gusset pieces, they're not interfaced, And we're making two sides pockets, so of course we need two of everything: two zipper pulls, two gusset bottoms, two gusset zipper pieces. We need main fabric and lining pieces for our pockets. So we will take zippers. Each zipper is 28 centimeters long, 11 inches. I do cut them quite tiny bit longer at first to thread in my zipper pulls. Now it's really important, we want our side pockets both closing towards the front, so if we use them now, one is closing to the left and one will be closing to the right. In this way you have them zippers closed towards the front. We will align the side pocket, main and lining pieces, wrong sides together and baste them together first. And then we take one of each gusset piece, one for the zipper and one for the bottom. The wider one is the one for the bottom and the smaller one is the one for the zipper. So the smaller one, the gusset zipper piece, you will fold the raw edges towards the center and then fold them together again and give it a press so it stays in place a bit more like that. See, in the end you will have a four layers on top of each other. I take some clips to secure them and then we will put a zipper tape into that fold. Important, one zipper closing to the left and one zipper should be closing towards the right. See, this one is closing to the right. I will use this one first and attach it to attach the gusset piece, the gusset zipper piece to the zipper, to the top edge of the zipper. Zipper is closing towards the right. And then I'll repeat this with the second piece. Zipper closing towards the left. Attach it to the top edge. When you secured everything with clips, we can top stitch our pieces. After top stitching, just cut off any extra zipper tape on the sides. And then we will place the zipper tape into the right side of the fold from the gusset bottom piece, just like that, and sew the short ends with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. See, the top edge is inside the fold of the gusset bottom piece, and you fold the side edge above the piece, the zipper, and these short ends will be sewn together with a 1 centimeter seam allowance on both pieces. When that is done, just turn the piece right side out and baste together the open edges from the bottom piece. If you like to, you could also top stitch the sides, but you don't have to. I simply baste the raw edges together so everything will stay in place. If you want to, you can top stitch here, but that's personal choice. I didn't, I just basted it. And then you'll have to mark the center on the top and the bottom. And since we have this sewn together edge, you cannot make a snip, so you could take some chalk or a fabric marker, like a magic marker, or you could take some masking tape. If you've never tried masking tape for sewing, I like to mark a lot of things with masking tape because I can just draw on it with my pen and don't just take it off later on. So if you never tried it, try it, and then I'm almost sure you will keep doing this, especially with some materials. It's just a lot easier. Just watch out that you don't get this into the fraying ends, because then you could pull out the threads easily. So we will also mark the top and the bottom center of our side pocket piece, and then place the zipper piece on top, the gusset, aligned by the top and the bottom marking first. The pieces need some snipping in the gusset, in the zipper, where the curves are located, just for a smoother, nicer fit. Make sure these cuts are small, so they will be hidden within the seam allowance later. And then you just take your clips and attach it to the whole piece, and then we will baste this first. And then I will attach the bias tape. If you never tried this method, try it. If you need more infos on how I do my binding, you could also watch the video tutorial. The link is on page 7. So here you can see how I baste the two pieces together really close to the edge. I use a very wide stitch, the widest stitch that I have on my sewing machine. And I just work myself around the whole piece. Let's speed this up a little bit, because the basting part is quite easy since it's so close to the edge. So when you get to the point where you started, you could sew the second round right away with the correct seam allowance of 1/4 inch, 7mm, or like I do, you could attach your bias tape within that seam. It's important that the pieces, the lining from the side pocket and the bias tape is right sides together. So I put this underneath, and I don't start right at the beginning of the tape. I start about here. So the first few centimeters are not sewn into the seam. I will get tangled up later on, but you'll see that. And then you sew with the correct seam allowance of 7mm, 1/4 inch, and moving the bias so all the edges are on top of each other. It can be tricky at first in the curvy section, but if you go slow and stitch by stitch, I'm sorry, and put the sewing foot up, move the piece a little bit, 1-2 stitches, and then continue, you'll be able to do this without a problem. So you work yourself around the whole piece, and watch out when you get to the beginning of the bias tape, because we want to fold this to the side, that we are sewing this like a triangle. And I've missed that part, so I needed to open up some stitches in the end, and then continue. So we're working ourselves around the whole piece, and now you would have to watch out already, because the beginning of the stitching, the beginning of the bias tape underneath should be folded away, and I did not do that. You can see I'm just sewing it in, and then I realized that, and then I needed to open up some stitches. No problem, just 1 or 2 stitches, because we will fold this like a triangle to the side, and then let the bias tape overlap. So I will just continue my stitching. Then in this case, don't forget to lock your seam, lock your stitches at the beginning, since we've just opened them up with the seam ripper. Now everything looks good. So you fold it to the side, let them overlay, and continue your stitching until you have sewn over the starting, like the beginning of the bias tape, and then lock your stitch again. We will now trim off any of the remaining bias tape, all the threads, and then we will fold the bias tape over the raw edges. So you fold it to the edge and then fold over again, so all the raw edges are hidden with the bias tape. If you want this technique, like a more detailed instruction, you'll find this in the extra link. You work yourself around the whole piece and then simply top stitch. Repeat this with the second side pocket, and now let's have a look at it. You can fold this over and massage the zipper a little bit above the bias tape with your fingers so that everything is out of the way and not be caught up in the zipper. And as you can see, one zipper is closing to one direction and the other pocket is closing towards the other one. And now we will attach them to the side pieces. So we take a side piece and the template. The template's supposed to be just a guide for you. It's not like the law to use it, but it's there to make everything easier. So you will draw a line 2 centimeters from the bottom edge and mark the center, and then you place the template on your side piece, centered and aligned by the 2 centimeter marking, and then you just draw the lines and also the markings, and then open up the zipper again and use some pins to connect your piece to attach it to your side. Make sure the top and the bottom markings are aligned, and on the side you use the marking where the gusset bottom and zipper piece meet, so where the seam is. This is your side. And then please check if this drawn line is really working for you. If not, this is the time to make adjustment. If your pocket is slightly bigger, of course you would have to draw another line on the top, maybe making it a bit taller, and then you simply stitch it onto your side piece. Now you can remove the masking tape. I know these 3D pockets are intimidating for a lot of people who make bags who are not like this advanced. This is also the reason why this is an advanced pattern. I will make a detailed tutorial about these type of pockets soon. I just don't know when do I get to it. Now we have to attach the D-rings. So we take the tabs, mark the center, fold them towards the center line and top stitch. Do this with 2 main fabric tabs and thread 1 slider on a D-ring on each tab. You could baste the ends together if you like, or you just put it onto the center on the top edge and baste this on there. And if you use the tabs that I've provided, don't let them extend over the edge. Just align them to the top edge. It's also a question like how much would you like your tab to be sticking out. I don't like them to stick out a lot. So it's your bag, you design it, you make your choices for it. And these were the side pieces. Now let's get to the front. So the front and the back, they have the top pieces with the handles attached. So we will prepare them first, and not just for the front, because we will make both at the same time. So cut some webbing. There was a flaw in mine, so I cut that off. Each webbing piece is 55 centimeters long. And of course they should both have the same length. And then we will make 2 markings on each webbing piece. 13 centimeters from the side edge, which is 5 inches from the short end on each end. And then transfer them to the second one. And we will sew together the part from marking to marking. So you fold them together and you start sewing where the marking is to the next marking. And you do this with both webbing pieces. Now the handles will be sewn on the top pieces for back and front. So align the short ends of the webbing on the bottom edge 4 centimeters, 1/3 an inch from the side edge. Then sew up until you have 3 centimeters from the top edge, 1/4 inches, and then go back down. So you've sewn a rectangle on the webbing pieces. Masking tape comes in handy here as well, but the webbing is a bit fuzzy, so keep that in mind when using something sticky. So the handle is attached. You could also sew a box corners, but the bottom edge will be hidden in the seam allowance when you connect the top to the bottom piece, so keep that in mind. So now it's really time to start with the front, but we have to prepare these 2 pieces for the front and back first. We will start with the front pocket. So we need the tabs, we need a zipper tape, and the main and lining pieces. So we use a zipper tape that is 18 centimeters long and attach a zipper pull. In inches, that'll be 7 inches. And we will make a fold in the center of the tab and then place the end of the zipper tape within this double fold. So you have 4 layers of fabric in above around the end of the zipper. You fold it to the middle, put the zipper on top, fold it to the middle, and fold over again, and then top stitch the pieces in place so everything stays where it's supposed to be. Top stitch here and here. When you've top stitched the piece, take the front pocket main and mark the center, and mark the center on the zipper tape as well, and place it right side down on the main fabric. And then you will put a lining piece on top, right side down. So the zipper is sandwiched in between the main and the lining pieces. And then you will sew the top edge with a 7mm, 1/4 inch seam allowance. Fold the fabrics away from the zipper and then top stitch, but just top stitch from where the zipper starts and ends. It's easier to sew the sides later. So start here and stop here. And now repeat the same process with the other 2 pieces. Sandwich the zipper centered on in between the main and lining fabric, and sew the top edge with a 7mm seam allowance, 1/4 inch seam allowance, and top stitch only the zipper. Then you'll fold the main fabrics right sides together and the lining fabrics right sides together, and sew around the whole piece with the 1 centimeter 3/8 inch seam allowance, but leave an opening in the lining piece in the bottom edge to turn the front pocket right here. Sew it with 1 centimeter, 3/8 inch. Leave an opening in the bottom seam, in the bottom edge of the lining fabric. Then trim off any seam allowance with a zigzag scissors. For a nicer fit, you could also use a little bit, like 1 or 2 millimeters more seam allowance for the lining pieces. So the lining piece is a bit shorter than the main fabric pieces. But that also depends on the type of fabric you're using. Then you can turn your piece right side out and close the opening. Therefore, you need to form out everything nicely and then fold the seam allowance towards the inside and top stitch on the pocket, on the lining fabrics. You could also do it by hand, but I'm lazy. I prefer just top stitching the opening. And then you put the lining back into the front pocket and give it a press. So now we can sew it onto our A front piece. It's the piece without the gap in the decoupage, okay? Don't get them switched up. So you'll make a marking 3 centimeters from the bottom edge, 1/4 inches. I use my masking tape again and mark the center on there. And then I will place the front pocket centered, aligned to my marking. Make sure it's straight and consider switching to a thicker needle to sew the front pocket onto the front piece, since the beginning and the end of this seam will be quite thick. You could also start in the center with your stitching and go up, that might be easier, and then from the center up to the other side. Make sure the zipper is closing towards the left, because we want all of our zippers closing towards the same direction in the end. So this is important, zipper closing towards the left, and then just stitch it on there. And now we can attach our top piece. Therefore, we take the piece with the handle attached, place them right sides together, and then sew the top edge with the 1 centimeter, 3/8 inch seam allowance. When that is done, you can fold up the top and top stitch the piece on the bottom, right underneath the handles. So now the front is done, looks good. We can set this aside. We will need this later for assembly, and we will now take care of the back. So we need the piece with the gap in the decoupage, and we need one facing, zipper facing, and we will center the zipper facing right above the gap, which is 5/8 inch from the top edge and 1.5 centimeters from the top edge. Check again if the gap is centered up underneath the facing piece, then turn it around and just stitch within that rectangle right next to the decoupage. We will now cut the center line, but don't start right at the beginning, because this cut will start and end in a V shape. So take some small scissors and cut into these corners as close as possible, but without hurting the seam. Don't cut into the seam, that's important, otherwise you'd have to sew this rectangle again. So the closer you get to the corners, the easier and nicer the finish will be. Then you will put the facing through the hole and give it a press. I finger press first, and then I use an iron to press it so that it stays in place a bit easier. Now we will prepare our zipper lining and the zipper itself. So we need 2 K pieces, and we also need a zipper slider and a zipper which is 21 centimeters long, 8 1/4 inches long, and we will place both pieces right side up and sew the edge with 7 millimeters seam allowance, 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then fold the fabric away and attach the other side in the same way. Zipper and K-pieces are right side up. So the zipper is closing towards the right now, and we will place the back piece with the gap centered above the zipper. So you just have to align the facing and the lining pieces, the side edges, so they are aligned. And then the hole is above the zipper, and you will sew a rectangle around the piece. Then you turn the piece over and fold the top K-piece down and trim off the extra strip of fabric on the bottom. Now you can sew the side and the bottom edge with a 1 centimeter seam allowance, 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now, like we did with the front piece, we will now attach the top here too. So we take the second piece, place it right sides together aligned on the top edge, and sew this edge with a 1 centimeter seam allowance, 3/8 inch seam allowance. Then we will fold the top up and top stitch on the bottom piece. And now our back piece is done. Set it aside. We will now take care of the top closure. So the top closure is quite new to a couple of you guys, but I really like this type of closure, but it's gonna be thick to top stitch, so keep that in mind. We need a zipper that is for 14 1/4 inches long, 36 centimeters, and we will center it on the main fabric piece, right side down with the zipper pull attached. So the zipper is shorter than the main closure piece, so that's normal and that's fine. You put the lining piece on top and sew the top edge with a 7mm seam allowance, 1/4 inch. Then you will fold the fabrics away from the zipper so they are wrong sides together. You could use some clips so make sure everything stays in place, and then you will top stitch. Top stitching important, only top stitch the zipper. Don't top stitch the whole piece. Start where the zipper is and where the zipper ends, and not the whole piece from here to here. You just top stitch, and then you'll attach the second the other top closure pieces in the same way. The zipper and the main fabrics centered right sides together, lining piece on top right side down, and you sew the top edge and top stitch only the zipper. Now we will align the sides. So the main fabrics are right sides together and the lining fabrics are right sides together, aligned by the side edges, and we will sew the side edge with 1 centimeter seam allowance, 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now we'll have to make some snips into the right close to the seam, but not into the seam. We don't want to hurt the seam. On both ends into the lining fabrics and the main fabrics. It does not have to be like so exact. It's just easier to form a triangle later. We will cut this off later anyways, so it's not that important. It's just making it easier to fold. So now we will open up the fold here, the seam, and place it on the zipper. So the zipper and the folds are aligned to form a triangle, and finger press it and secure it with clips, and repeat this with all the fabrics. So the other edge as well. The seam is on top of the zipper, so it's straight. Open up the seam allowance, finger press this triangle, and attach some clips to make sure everything stays in place. And then just turn the piece around and repeat this with the lining fabrics. The seam above the zipper, open it up, finger press it, and put them into the clip as well, so the pieces are on top of each other. It's just important that the seam is aligned with the zipper, so we have a straight edge later. Now we will take our ruler and measure and draw a line from this direction, from the long edge from the triangle to towards the tip. which measures 4 centimeters, 1.5 inches. The clips might be in the way, so scoot them out of the way and draw a line on a, this is 90-degree angle. Is that correct? And then simply repeat this on the other side as well, 4 centimeters from the long edge, and sew along this line that you've just drawn onto your fabrics, so that lining and main fabrics will be sewn together into this rectangle. No, not rectangle, that was a triangle. That was the word. The triangle tip will now be cut off. See, the zipper is sewn in, and then you cut off and you just leave like a little bit of seam allowance. Cut off the tip from the triangle, and then we will fold the main fabric and the lining fabric from point to point from the pointy tip like this, and turn the closure that the lining fabric is wrapped around the main fabric. So put this over the corners that the raw edges are aligned, and then baste them together. And I really suggest you to baste them together, because otherwise this will shift, and we want everything to stay in place later on when we assemble all the pieces together. So baste them together. I also suggest you to give this piece a press. So again, fold the line from seam to seam from the pointy tip and give it a press. And then the top closure is done. We can set this aside, and now we will take care of the interior. For the interior, you need to draw a rectangle on the wrong side of the second zipper facing piece. You can use the measurements from the pattern piece, and I also mark the center line here. You will place this on top of the main lining piece, centered and 6 centimeters from the top edge, 2.5 inches from the top edge, centered. So the pieces are right sides together, and then sew along the rectangle that you've just drawn. When the two pieces are sewn together, you will cut the center line and the small V shapes, just like we did with the back zipper pocket for the main piece. It's the same technique. Love this ruler. It's just sticking and not sliding off. So cut as close into the corners as possible. Put the facing through the hole and form out everything and give it a press. Now we will make the zipper pocket. We take the remaining K pieces and a zipper piece with a zipper tape with a zipper slider attached. The endless zipper is 21 centimeters long. That'll be 8 1/4. I leave it a tiny bit longer, and then place this right side up on the right side of the K piece and sew the top edge with a 7mm seam allowance. Then I fold the fabric away and repeat this with the second with the remaining K piece. So the zipper is closing towards the right and is right side up, and we will place the main lining piece on top, aligning the facing and the K pieces on the side edges, and stitch a rectangle around the zipper, connecting these pieces with each other. When that is done, you turn the piece over and fold the top K piece down and trim off the extra fabric on the bottom, and then sew the side and the bottom edge, but leave an opening in the bottom with 1 centimeter seam allowance. So leave the opening as large as possible, That will be helpful for later. See, this is the opening. Leave the zipper open. And then we will make a slip pocket as well. So we have two more for the front pocket pieces. So we use them as a slip pocket as well. So place main and lining right sides together. Sew them together with a 1 centimeter 3/8 inch seam allowance, but leave an opening in the bottom edge. Then trim off the corners. If you like to, you can trim off the curvy section with zigzag scissors or pinking shears. And then turn the piece right side out and give it a press. Fold the seam allowance inwards from the opening, give it a press, and then top stitch the top edge. Now we can attach it underneath our zipper pocket. So mark the center and align it centered onto your main lining piece. 10 centimeters from the bottom edge. Fold up the zipper pocket, so you don't want to stitch into the zipper pocket. So we measure 10 centimeters 4 inches from the bottom edge. We place it centered on there and stitch it on there without stitching into our lining from the zipper pocket. So this is it. The question is, do you want to make a center divider or not? So I will show you the center divider later. Now let's see, if you don't want to add it, you could also add an elastic band like this to use as a cup holder. So it's 9 inches long, 23 centimeters, and align it to the side edge 15 centimeters from the top edge. The short 6 inches, the short ends are on top of each other, and I just basted it into the side edge, and we will connect this later on if you don't make a zipper center divider. But if you do, I'll now show you how to make the center divider. Therefore, we will start with the zipper first. It's 27 centimeters long, 10.5 inches. And you will need the top, main, and lining pieces, and you sandwich the ends of the zipper into the main and lining pieces and stitch them together with a 1 centimeter seam allowance, 3/8 inch. Then you fold the fabrics away from the zipper so they are wrong sides together and top stitch. Mark the center from the zipper and mark the centers from the center divider main and lining pieces. Mark all the centers and then place the zipper right side down onto the main fabric centered. Place one lining piece on top, right side down, and sew the top edge with a 7mm seam allowance, which is 1/4 inches. Fold the fabrics away from the zipper, so the fabrics are now wrong sides together, and then top stitch your piece. Top stitch the zipper. Now we can attach the other main and lining pieces to the other edge of the zipper in the same way. Centered, right sides together, and then the lining piece right side down on top, and then you'll sew this with a 7mm seam allowance, 1/4 inch seam allowance. You fold the fabrics away from the zipper and top stitch. So now we will make the sleeves. You can either make just one, or you can make two, or you can make none. Then you simply just skip the next piece, but I'll show you how to make two. And you sew the top edges together and the bottom edges with 1 centimeter seam allowance. And you take one piece with Decophyllite from the main fabric and one piece without. On this, I didn't have enough of the main fabric, so I've made lining fabric choices here, but I really like it if you make this from both from main fabrics. So the Decophyllite piece is way much smaller so that you can fold the side edges to the inside. So fold the edge to the Decophyllite, use the Decophyllite as an orientation on where the fabric ends. I'm sorry that I have a new camera set up, so I need to get used to the position being way more in front of me. So I'm sorry if there's out of the picture, but you fold the seam to the Decophyllite edge, then you fold the other side as well, so you don't have any raw edges on the side. Hey Sarah, put this under the camera, please. I'm so sorry. Now, there you go. Give it a press so it stays in place. And then top stitch the top and bottom. Now we'll have some markings on our main fabric. So make sure the zipper is closing towards the left. Important. Closing towards the left, and fold the lining out of the way. Then mark a line 2 centimeters from the bottom, 3/4 inches. I use masking tape because I can draw on that with a pen. I don't have to pay attention on what pen I use. Then I will make a marking 6 centimeters from each side, 2.5 inches. So I can align this like this. So the Decophyllite piece is on top of the main fabric from the divider. Then I stitch a rectangle like this. And now I will attach the other one in the same manner. And I kind of had a knot in my brain on how to place the masking tape there, but I cut it out because it was so confusing. So measure 6 centimeters from the side edge, 2.5 inches. Make a line, draw a line on there, or use the masking tape, and then align the side of the sleeve to this corner marking, right side down, and sew a rectangle, a very slim rectangle. You sew up 1 stitch to the side and down again, and 1 stitch to the side, so it's attached in that way. See, like this. Both sleeves are attached to the center divider. And now we will finish the center divider by aligning the main fabrics, right sides together, and the lining fabrics, right sides together. And we will just sew the corners. So the sides and the bottom will stay open. So just sew the corners with a 1 centimeter seam allowance, 3/8 inch seam allowance. If the zipper is open, it's easier to turn, and we will sew the 4 corners and then trim them off the seam allowance. And then you can turn your piece right side out and put the lining into the main fabric. When everything is aligned correctly, top stitch the side, corner, bottom, and then go up the other side. And then you will baste them together. You baste all pieces together and top stitch the corners in one step. down, top stitch, bottom, top stitch, up. See? Looks good. And now we will attach the sleeves to the other remaining lining piece, main lining piece. So mark the center, so we take the piece without the zipper pocket and the slip pocket. And then make a marking 13 centimeters from the side edge, which is 518 inches. And from the other side as well, we will align it like this to this line. And the second marking is 10.5, 418 from the top edge. We will align it like that and stitch it on there, but I will show you on my sewing machine on how I do that. So I have my masking tape. I align the top edge to the drawn marking on the masking tape, and then I will simply stitch this on there, making a small slim rectangle. So I will sew upwards and then one stitch to the side, go down again. And then repeat with the second one. Align it to your marking. See, this is the top marking, so that the sleeve will be stitched onto your main lining piece. So this looks funny, but we will connect the two pieces, the two main lining pieces now. But first we will baste the sides and the bottom from the center divider onto the lining piece. Therefore, we mark the center and then align the bottom edge first. Forgot to make a marking. So place the two bottom markings, center markings, on top of each other and secure it with clips. I will show you in a moment. And then baste the piece on there. Baste this seam together. So the bottom is basted to the main lining, and now the side as well. 5 centimeters from the bottom edge, 2 inches from the bottom edge. On both sides, baste them in place. 5 centimeters, 2 inches from the bottom edge. Baste them together. So now it's time to finish our main lining. Therefore, just place the second main lining piece with the interior zipper pocket and the slip pocket on top, so that they are right sides together. And then sew the side edges first with 1 centimeter seam allowance, 3/8 inch. When that is done, we will sew the bottom edge, but only a tiny piece of it, because we will leave an opening in the bottom edge as large as possible. So therefore I start at the beginning and go just when I like 2 or 3 stitches above the center divider. See, this is when it's stitched together, and this is my opening. The piece is going to be hard to turn, I'll be honest with you, but it's possible. Then we align the side and the bottom seams. So the raw edges, the open edges, are aligned to each other on both sides, and we will sew them with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. And then our lining piece with the center divider is done. We have 2 openings. And now it's time for assembly. So when you skip the center divider, I will quickly show you how this is assembled without the center divider. We also leave a big opening in the bottom seam. We sew the side and the bottom seam with 1 centimeter, and then align the side and the bottom seams to make the box corners. Now we will take all of our pieces and put them together. Important, the side piece close towards the front. So close the zipper and see if the pull is where the front is. And then place them right sides together. Put the side piece onto the front. And sew this with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. And then attach the second side piece in the same way. You sew the edges together with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. And now we will attach the back piece. Start with one side first, align the edges, right sides together, and sew with the 1 centimeter seam allowance as well. And then attach it to the other side piece, the other side from the back piece to the side piece to close like your main body of the bag. So it's easier if you baste this first so nothing shifts, but that's up to you. See, now we connected this on the one edge, and now we will connect the second one. I do baste the side pieces onto the front and back first, to be honest, because of the side pockets, it can shift easily. Now we have to attach our bottom piece. Before that, mark all the centers. Maybe you should have done that before, but I always forget. So mark the bottom centers and the top centers on the front, back, and the side pieces. I mean, the side pieces, they're already marked, but the front and back need to be marked as well. Also mark the centers on the bottom piece, and we will attach it to the bottom. So we will start with the center markings. You align them and use some clips, or you could also do some basting stitches instead of clips, just where the markings are, so that it stays in place, because this is a hard part from this bag pattern. But if you go slowly and baste a lot first, then it's easier. So I make some small slits into the sections that are above the curves from the bottom piece, and then it's easier to align them. Then I work myself around the whole piece, attaching this with clips, and now we will baste the bottom first, and you will see when you go along without a free arm, this piece likes to shift away. It's easier if you have a free arm, I guess. You have to squish the upper part away, out of the way, so that the sides, the raw edges, stay aligned. At one point I had to take it off again and rearrange my clips because everything shifted. See, the side is completely off again. So I just position this in place and go really slow and just focus on the stitching right in front of the needle and not what's further ahead, because you will correct this along you go. See there, everything went off. So I have to rearrange and go slow. And this is why the basting is really important. Because if you would like sew this with the correct seam allowance and it will shift, it will be a mess. Especially because the top is in the way from the back, and yeah, you would have to reposition it all the time. So baste this together as close to the edge as possible, that everything stays in place. So where the slits are, it might be coming off, but then when you've reached the beginning, you sew with the correct seam allowance of 1 centimeter. Or you could also do 7 millimeter if that's easier, if you have too many problems with shifting. It also depends on the type of fabric that you use, but both seam allowance would be okay in this case. And work yourself around the whole piece, and now nothing can shift anymore. So that's really, really good to hit the correct seam allowance. So when it's done, you can trim your corners on your seam allowance with pinking shears. You don't have to. It also depends on the fabric, on the thickness of your fabric. But I've used faux leather, so I will trim my seam allowance a little bit, especially in the curvy section. See, all zippers are closing towards the same direction, so when you attach the top closure, make sure the zipper from the top closure closes the same direction. So place these right sides together, so the main fabrics are right sides together, and align them by the center markings. And work yourself around the whole piece, attaching the raw edges, aligning the raw edges, main fabrics right sides together, with the zipper closing into the same direction as the other zippers. And then baste the piece in place. Now we will attach the main lining. And again, the zipper from the interior pocket should close into the same direction as the other zippers. So turn the piece right side out and place it into your main fabric bag with the zipper closing into the right direction, and align the top edge as well. If you have the one with the zipper with the divider attached, it's a bit harder, but keep in mind it does not have to be pushed into the whole thing correctly. Just the top edge is important for us because this is the part that we're gonna sew. So align all the raw edges. Use your clips to secure everything, and then you will sew with the correct seam allowance of 1 centimeter, 3/8 inch. You sew around the whole top edge with the correct seam allowance. Now it's time to turn. Later on I will show you how to turn this with the center divider attached because it's harder. But now we have a big opening in the bottom seam, and we will use this opening to turn the piece right side out. And I will make this a lot quicker because this will take some time. So here you will see the piece with the zipper divider, center divider attached, the basting stitch and the correct seam allowance. And then again, we have two openings. The zipper should be open, but we will turn this back through the bigger opening in the bottom seam. And this is quite hard, but you can do this. Like I mentioned, if you use like vinyl or faux leather, you could also warm up your fabrics a little bit by putting it onto your heater or blow dry it with a blow dryer. And yeah, this is how it looks like when the piece is turned. And now you will stick your hand through the opening in the zipper pocket and pull up the interior fabric, just the part where the opening is. That's important. You don't have to squish the whole piece through there, just the part where the opening is. And it's like curvy like that because you don't have enough space, but it's only important what's in front of you. What are you gonna sew? There, I ripped some of my interfacing while turning this piece. Then I will continue my stitching to close the opening. And then I will push this back in there. If you're making the version without the center divider, it's basically the same thing. You pull up the lining through the opening in the zipper pocket, close the seam, the opening, and then you fold the seam allowance from the zipper pocket inwards and then top stitch without breaking any clips. That would be good. See, this is the top stitched zipper pocket, and you place it back into your bag. And now we will have to do the top stitching for the top edge. So you finger press everything in place that you formed out the top edge nicely and secure it with clips, and then simply top stitch. This can be hard, so take like a denim needle, something that's thick, because especially where the D-rings are, this piece is thick. See, this is the same with the without the center divider. You pull the opening through the hole in from the interior zipper pocket, and you will just continue your stitching to close the opening, the big opening in the bottom seam. See, we've continued this stitching. You put it back inside and then pull up the interior slip pocket, zipper pocket, fold the seam allowance inwards, secure it with clips, and then top stitch. And then you can put this back in there. And then you finger press the top edge, make sure it's formed out correctly. And then top stitch the top edge. And now the back is done, right? Not quite. We still have to do a strap, of course. And you can get creative and do whatever strap you like. I'm just going to show you like an easy version. If you have a webbing, which is 4 centimeters wide, so wider webbing, you do need 2 sliders and one slider and swivel clasps. And the piece is 1.40 meters long, 55 inch. And first you will thread a slider on one end and secure it with stitches. So you fold it over and secure it with stitches. So this is how the slider is attached, and you take the other short end and thread a swivel clasp on the end, and then go through the slider again above the webbing that's already in there. Use some frayed check if you like, or some lighter to melt it if it's nylon. And you thread on the second swivel, fold it over, and then sew a box. Another way of a nice finish are these endings, these metal webbing endings. And I have a prong with silicone, so I can just simply put it on there, squeeze the prongs, is that right? What the right word? And then place them right sides together without folding them and sew a box. And now your bag is really done. I hope you really like this tutorial, and I hope we can sew many more advanced bags together. So come to my Patreon page and my Facebook group, and I hope to see you there. See you next time. Bye.